Your mind feels louder tonight, not in a dramatic way, not in a way you can easily explain, just louder. During the day, there is movement everywhere, people talking, things to respond to, tasks pulling your attention outward, and somehow, through all that noise, your mind stays in the background. But now, the day is over. The lights are softer. The room is still. Your body has finally stopped moving. And that's when it begins. Thoughts start filling the space. Not because something went wrong, but because nothing is distracting you anymore. You may be lying down right now, feeling tired, yet unable to rest. Your eyes are closed, but your mind is wide awake. If that's happening to you, there's nothing abnormal about it. This is one of the most common night experiences there is. It just doesn't get talked about very often. At night, the world stops asking for your attention, so your mind turns inward. And when it does, it doesn't bring order. It brings everything. It didn't have time to process. Unfinished conversations, unclear emotions, moments you didn't fully feel when they happened. They don't arrive gently. They arrive all at once. You might notice your thoughts jumping from one thing to another without any clear direction. Something small from earlier in the day suddenly feels heavy. Something from the past shows up without warning. Questions appear that don't have answers right now. And you might wonder why this always happens at night. Why not in the morning? Why not when you're busy? It's not because night is dangerous. It's because night is honest. When the body slows down, the mind keeps moving for a while. Not to hurt you, not to confuse you, but because it hasn't been given a moment to settle yet. You didn't do anything wrong today to deserve this. Your mind isn't failing you. It's simply adjusting to silence. Silence can feel uncomfortable when you're not used to it, especially when you've spent the entire day holding things together, managing expectations, keeping your emotions under control. At night, there's no one to perform for, no role to maintain, no reaction expected from you. So the tension that was held quietly during the day finally makes itself known. You don't need to fix it right now. You don't need to understand it. Just noticing it is enough. Right now, nothing is being asked of you. You don't need to respond to your thoughts. You don't need to follow them. They can be there without becoming something you must deal with. For this moment, you are allowed to stay exactly where you are. Breathing, listening, without effort. The noise in your mind is not a signal that something is wrong with you. It's a signal that the day has ended, and that's where we'll begin. As the thoughts keep coming, you might start feeling a strange pressure. Not panic, not fear exactly, more like an inner weight. A sense that your mind is busy, but not productive, active, but not useful. You may feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't immediately fix, and that can be confusing. Because your body feels ready to rest, yet your mind behaves as if there is still something urgent to do, something unfinished. This kind of fatigue is easy to misunderstand. It's not the fatigue of effort. It's not the fatigue of movement. It's the fatigue of holding things in. All day long you probably made small adjustments. You adapted. You restrained reactions. You postponed feelings. None of that feels dramatic while it's happening. It feels normal, necessary. But at night, those small efforts add up. The mind doesn't forget what the body tolerated. So when everything slows down, that stored tension asks to be acknowledged, not solved, just noticed. You might catch yourself replaying moments from earlier. Things you said, things you didn't say, moments that felt slightly off, but that you moved past anyway. At night, they return without context. And without context, they feel heavier than they actually are. This is where many people start blaming themselves. They think they are weak for not being able to shut their mind down. They think rest should be automatic. But rest is not something you force. It's something that happens when pressure is removed. Right now, your mind is not asking for action. It's asking for space. There's a difference. Trying to push your thoughts away only creates more tension. Trying to understand everything keeps the system active. Tonight doesn't require effort from you. It requires permission. Permission to not engage. Permission to not resolve. The mind often feels loud because it senses resistance. When there is nothing to push against, it naturally begins to soften. You don't need to silence anything. You don't need to calm anything down. You only need to stop tightening around what appears. Let the thoughts move without following them. They don't need your energy right now. You might notice moments where your attention drifts, where the thoughts lose their sharpness for a few seconds. That's not failure. That's the beginning of rest. Even brief pauses matter. They show your system that it's safe to slow down. There is no deadline tonight, no decision that must be made before sleep. Whatever feels unresolved will still exist tomorrow, with more clarity and more strength to face it. Night is not the right moment to demand answers from yourself. It's the moment to reduce pressure. You're allowed to put things down mentally, even if they're not finished. Nothing bad happens when you do. The mind doesn't collapse. Life doesn't fall apart. Instead, something subtle begins to happen. The inner noise starts losing its urgency, not because it disappeared, but because you stopped treating it like a problem. And when the mind no longer feels threatened, it doesn't need to shout. It can simply be. Stay here for a moment. There is nowhere else you need to go. Nothing else you need to do. Just allow this pause to exist. At some point you may notice something else happening. A subtle shift. The thoughts are still there, but now there's a layer of frustration around them. A feeling of resistance. You might catch yourself thinking, why am I still thinking about this? I should be asleep by now. I need my mind to stop. That inner struggle is exhausting. Not because the thoughts are powerful, but because fighting them requires constant energy. The mind reacts strongly when it feels it's being controlled. The more you demand silence, the more activity you create. This is not because you're doing something wrong, it's because the mind doesn't respond well to force, especially when you're already tired. Trying to overpower your thoughts at night is like trying to smooth water with your hands. Every movement creates more ripples. You don't need to win against your mind. There is nothing to defeat here. Thoughts don't disappear because you tell them to. They fade when they are no longer fed by tension. You may notice that certain thoughts repeat themselves. The same idea, the same concern, the same memory. That repetition doesn't mean it's important. It usually means it's emotionally charged. And emotional charge weakens in stillness, not in analysis. The mind often circles around the same content when it senses urgency. Remove the urgency, and the circle naturally widens, then slows. Right now, nothing bad will happen if you don't solve what's coming up. There is no penalty for letting thoughts pass unanswered. You don't lose control by not responding. You regain energy. You might feel the body responding first. The jaw loosens slightly. The shoulders drop a little. Breathing becomes less forced. These are small signs, but they matter. They show that the system is beginning to trust the moment. You don't have to force this process. You don't have to monitor it. Just let the sensations be without correcting them. If a thought appears, notice it, and let it move on its own. No commentary needed. You don't have to finish every sentence your mind starts. Some thoughts are just passing noise. They don't require completion. Right now, the goal is not clarity. It's softness. Clarity belongs to daylight. Softness belongs to night. And softness is enough. Stay with this feeling of not pushing, of not pulling, just staying. The mind learns rest when it is no longer treated as an enemy. And slowly, without effort, the inner volume begins to lower itself. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to remain, enough for the night to continue unfolding. As the resistance softens, something quieter begins to take its place. It's not silence yet. It's not sleep. It's space. A subtle sense that you don't have to react to everything that appears inside you. The thoughts may still come, but they no longer arrive with the same force. They feel a little farther away, less urgent, less demanding. This is often the moment when the mind tries something new. It may look for control, a desire to organize, to put things in order, to regain a sense of direction. You might notice an impulse to plan, to rehearse tomorrow, to fix something ahead of time. This too is natural. The mind has spent a long time believing that control equals safety. So when things begin to loosen, it reaches for what it knows. But tonight, control is not what brings relief. Control keeps the system awake. It creates a subtle tension even when it feels responsible or productive. At night, the mind doesn't need direction. It needs permission to stop steering. You don't have to hold everything together right now. Nothing collapses when you let go for a while. Life doesn't require supervision in this moment. You may notice how often the mind asks, "What if? What if this happens? What if I forget something? What if things don't work out?" Those questions don't come from wisdom. They come from fatigue. A tired mind looks for certainty, but certainty is not available at night. And that's not a failure. It's simply timing. The night does not exist to provide answers. It exists to allow recovery. Trying to think clearly when the system is drained only deepens the exhaustion. So tonight, you don't need to know. You don't need to be sure. You don't need to resolve anything internally. You are allowed to rest in the middle of uncertainty. Uncertainty does not mean danger. It just means openness. And openness is not something you need to fill. You may notice a feeling of emptiness starting to appear. Not a dramatic emptiness, not despair, just a quiet absence of direction. For some people, this feeling is uncomfortable. They mistake it for meaninglessness. But this space is not a lack. It's a pause. During the day, your identity is reinforced constantly by roles, by expectations, by reactions from others. At night, those reinforcements fade, so the mind feels exposed. But exposure does not mean loss. It means rest from performance. You don't need to be anyone right now. You don't need to hold an image of yourself. There is no version of you that needs maintenance in this moment. Just breathing is enough. If a sense of emptiness arises, let it be neutral. It doesn't need interpretation. Not everything that feels empty is broken. Sometimes it's simply quiet. And quiet can feel unfamiliar when you've been living under constant pressure. The mind often fills silence because it doesn't trust it yet. But trust grows with exposure. Each moment you don't rush to fill the space, the system learns that nothing bad happens, that it's safe to remain open. You might notice your breathing becoming deeper without effort. The body responds when it no longer feels watched or corrected. You don't need to breathe in a certain way. You don't need to relax on purpose. Just allow the body to adjust itself. It knows how. You might feel small sensations, a warmth in the chest, a heaviness in the limbs, a gentle pull towards stillness. These are not signs you need to analyze. They are signs you can allow. Nothing needs to be done with them. If thoughts appear again, they don't mean progress was lost. They are just echoes. Old habits checking if they're still needed. You don't have to push them away. Just don't invite them closer. They can stay at the edge of awareness without becoming the center. You don't have to think about thinking. You don't have to monitor your state. The moment doesn't require supervision. Right now, effort is optional. You've spent enough time being alert, enough time managing, enough time holding tension in small, invisible ways. This moment is different. It doesn't ask anything from you. You can let the mind float without direction, not asleep, not awake, just drifting. If you notice the urge to check something mentally, to verify, to confirm, to make sure, let that urge pass. Nothing important will be missed. What truly matters doesn't disappear when attention softens. In fact, it becomes clearer later. But not now. Now is for letting go of the need to know. Letting go of the need to manage. Letting go of the need to be ready. You are allowed to be unfinished tonight. Nothing is required of you in this state. The world can wait. Your mind can rest without collapsing. Your awareness can remain open without being active. Just stay here, not aiming for sleep, not aiming for silence, just allowing the night to carry you a little further. As the night deepens, something begins to shift even more quietly. Not in the mind first, but in the way the mind relates to itself. There is less urgency to name what's happening, less need to define the experience. Things simply start to be. You may notice that thoughts still appear, but they arrive differently now. They don't rush in. They don't demand immediate attention. They pass through like distant sounds in another room. At this stage, the mind is no longer looking for solutions. It's letting go of the idea that everything must be resolved internally. And that changes everything. So much of mental exhaustion comes from the belief that you must always be available to your own thoughts, as if every idea that appears deserves a response, as if ignoring a thought means losing control. But control was never the goal. Stability was. And stability doesn't come from answering everything. It comes from knowing that not everything needs an answer. You might notice moments now where your attention feels softer, less focused, but not lost, more spread out. This is not distraction, it's rest. A rested mind does not cling, it does not chase, It allows. There may be pauses where nothing in particular is happening. No strong thought, no emotion demanding attention, just a quiet presence. For some people, this moment feels unfamiliar. They wonder if something is missing, but nothing is missing. This is what the absence of pressure feels like. During the day, your awareness is constantly pulled forward, toward tasks, toward expectations, toward outcomes. At night, that forward pull weakens, and the mind doesn't need to replace it with anything. It can simply stay where it is. You might feel a sense of neutrality settling in. Not happiness, not sadness, just okayness. This state is deeply misunderstood. Many people believe peace must feel positive or uplifting, but real rest often feels neutral, undramatic, simple. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly stabilizes the system. If you feel this neutrality, you don't need to improve it. Trying to make it better pulls you back into effort. Just let it exist as it is. You may notice that your sense of time begins to blur slightly. Minutes feel less defined. There's less tracking of how long you've been lying there. This is another sign that the mind is no longer trying to manage the experience. You don't need to check in with yourself. You don't need to evaluate how well this is going. Evaluation belongs to daylight. Right now, there is no performance. There is no correct way to experience this moment. Whatever you're noticing is enough, even if it feels subtle, especially if it feels subtle. The quieter the shift, the deeper it tends to go. You might notice the body becoming heavier, not uncomfortable, just settled. The limbs feel supported. The surface beneath you feels more present. There is nothing you need to adjust. The body knows how to rest when the mind stops interfering. If a thought briefly pulls your attention again, that's okay. It doesn't undo anything. The system is not fragile. You're not starting over. You're simply allowing another wave to pass. Each time you don't react, the mind learns something important. It learns that stillness is not dangerous, that nothing bad happens when it stops scanning for problems. That awareness can remain open without being tense. This learning doesn't happen through reasoning. It happens through experience, through moments like this one, moments where you stay present without trying to direct anything. You may notice a gentle sense of distance between you and your thoughts, not separation, just space, as if the thoughts are happening nearby, but not inside you. This space is natural. It's always been there. It just becomes noticeable when the noise quiets down. You don't need to hold on to this space. Holding is effort. Just let it be there. If it fades, that's fine too. Nothing is being lost. You're not trying to reach a permanent state. You're allowing a temporary easing. That's enough. You don't need to carry clarity into sleep. You don't need to end the day with understanding. Understanding can wait. Rest cannot. Tonight, the most helpful thing you can do is stop asking anything of yourself. Stop asking for insight. Stop asking for resolution. Stop asking for certainty. You are allowed to exist without internal demands. You may feel a soft sense of safety emerging, not because everything is okay, but because nothing is being judged. Judgment keeps the system alert. Acceptance allows it to soften. And acceptance doesn't mean approval. It just means allowing what is present to exist without resistance. You're not agreeing with your thoughts. You're simply not fighting them. That difference matters. As the mind continues to settle, there may be longer pauses between thoughts, or thoughts that dissolve mid-sentence. This is not something you need to notice deliberately. It will happen on its own when attention stops gripping. You don't need to follow anything. Just let the night continue unfolding at its own pace. There is nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else waiting for you in this moment. The day has released you. You don't need to carry it any further. Stay here, not watching, not listening closely, just staying. Let the mind rest in its own way. At this point in the night, the mind is no longer pushing as hard. There is less insistence, less pulling forward. What remains is a quieter awareness. You may notice that you are no longer waiting for something to happen, no longer anticipating sleep. That waiting was a form of tension, and now even that begins to dissolve. There is nothing you need to reach. Sleep is not something you arrive at. It's something that happens when the effort to arrive disappears. You might sense a gentle fading of boundaries. The edges of your thoughts are softer. Your attention is less sharp, but also less strained. This is not confusion. It's the mind returning to a more natural rhythm. During the day, awareness is narrow and focused. At night, it widens. It becomes less interested in details, less concerned with outcomes. This widening is a sign of recovery. You don't need to follow it. You don't need to deepen it. Just allow it to continue. If a thought appears now, it may feel unfinished. A sentence without an ending. An image that fades quickly. You don't need to complete it. Completion belongs to action. This moment is not for action. The mind is learning that it can stop mid-process without consequence. That nothing breaks when attention loosens. You may feel the body responding more clearly now. A heaviness that is not uncomfortable. A warmth that spreads slowly. A sense of being held by the surface beneath you. There is no need to adjust your position. Small movements will happen on their own if they are needed. You don't have to help the body rest. It already knows how. If there is still a trace of concern somewhere, a background worry, a quiet question, you don't need to push it away. Just notice that it exists without giving it space to grow. It can remain small. Not everything needs expansion. The mind often amplifies things when it senses resistance. Without resistance, amplification loses its fuel. You may notice longer stretches where nothing specific is happening internally. No clear thought, no emotion asking for attention, just presence. This is not emptiness in a negative sense. It's a pause between waves, a place where the system recalibrates. You don't need to stay alert here. Awareness can soften without disappearing. If your attention drifts, that's fine. If it returns briefly, that's fine too. There is no correct pattern. The night is not measuring your progress. You don't need to check if you're doing this right. Right now, doing nothing is exactly right. The pressure to improve has no place here. You've already done enough today. Your value is not tied to how quickly you fall asleep, or how calm your mind becomes. Rest does not require achievement. It requires permission. Permission to stop evaluating. Permission to stop adjusting. Permission to stop trying. You may feel that sense of permission settling in without words. A quiet acceptance. Not of the day, not of your life, just of this moment as it is. That acceptance allows the nervous system to continue slowing down. Heart rate eases. Breathing becomes more regular, not because you controlled it, but because nothing is interfering anymore. If thoughts return later, they will be weaker, less convincing. They may come and go without pulling you with them. This is not something to notice deliberately. Just let it happen. The mind is not being trained. It's being allowed to rest in the absence of demand. You don't need to stay with the words anymore. If they fade into the background, that's a good sign. The sound of the voice can become distant, not because you're losing focus, but because focus is no longer needed. There is no instruction to follow now, no direction being given, just a steady presence that doesn't ask anything from you. If sleep comes, let it come. If it doesn't come yet, that's okay too. There is no urgency. The night is long. You are safe to drift at your own pace. Nothing needs to be decided. Nothing needs to be remembered. Just allow this softness to continue unfolding. There is a different quality to the mind now. Not empty, not silent, just less engaged. Thoughts no longer feel like messages that need to be read. They're more like distant movements, happening somewhere in the background. You don't need to follow them anymore. The effort to stay attentive has faded, and with it, the need to understand. Understanding was never meant for this hour. At night, the mind doesn't restore itself through insight. It restores itself through release. You may notice that your sense of self feels softer now, less defined, not in a frightening way, in a gentle way. During the day, you are constantly reminded of who you are, your name, your role, your responsibilities. At night, those reminders lose their strength, and that's not a loss. It's relief. You don't need to hold your identity together right now. You don't need to carry a story about yourself. For this moment, you can simply exist. Breathing continues without instruction. The body adjusts without permission. Nothing is asking you to participate. If there is still a part of you that feels alert, still watching, still waiting, that part doesn't need to disappear. It can rest too. Alertness does not need to turn off completely for rest to happen. It only needs to loosen. You may notice moments where awareness dips, where the words blur, where time becomes unclear. That's not something to resist. That's the natural direction of the night. You don't need to stay awake for this. You don't need to stay present. Presence has done its work. Now it can soften. There is no advantage to staying sharp. Sharpness belongs to survival. This moment is about recovery. You've already navigated enough today. Enough decisions, enough reactions. The system no longer needs input. If a memory appears now, it will feel distant, as if it belongs to another version of you, earlier today, or long ago. You don't need to connect it to anything. Memories lose their emotional charge when they are not linked to urgency. They become images, not problems. And images don't require action. You may feel the edges of awareness dissolving, not disappearing, just becoming less defined. Like the moment before sleep, when thoughts stop forming complete shapes. This is not something to aim for. It happens when the system feels safe enough to stop organizing experience. Safety does not come from certainty. It comes from the absence of pressure. And right now, there is no pressure. Nothing needs to be achieved. Nothing needs to be held. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. The day has already passed. Whatever wasn't finished will wait. It always does. Night is not a deadline. It's a pause. You don't need to prepare for tomorrow in this state. Preparation requires energy. Energy returns after rest. Let the sequence be what it is. Rest first, clarity later. You don't need to remind yourself of this. Your system already understands. You may notice longer gaps between thoughts now, or thoughts that start and quietly fade before completing themselves. This is not something to notice deliberately. Just let it happen. The mind is transitioning without effort. You don't need to help it. The voice you're hearing doesn't require attention anymore. It can stay in the background, like a steady presence that doesn't ask to be followed. If you drift, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. Nothing is expected from you. You don't need to be calm. You don't need to be relaxed. Those ideas imply effort. All that's needed now is the absence of resistance. You've already allowed enough. The system knows what to do next. You may feel a sense of settling, as if everything is gently lowering itself. No movement required, no adjustment needed, just letting gravity do its work. Let the night continue. Let the mind release its grip without commentary. There is no final thought you need to reach. No realization waiting at the end. The end is not a thought, it's rest, and rest is already happening. There is nothing left to do now, nothing waiting for you, nothing asking for your attention. If the words are still reaching you, they don't need to be followed. They can exist at the edge of awareness, like a distant sound that no longer requires listening. You don't need to stay here with intention. Intention has already softened. The mind is no longer trying to understand. It's no longer arranging thoughts into meaning. Thoughts may still appear, but they arrive unfinished. They begin, and then quietly fall away. You don't need to notice when this happens. Noticing would be effort, and effort has no role now. You've already done enough tonight. Even listening was enough. Whatever still feels unresolved does not belong to this moment. It belongs to another time, another rhythm, another state of energy. And that time will come without you needing to prepare for it. The day no longer needs to be carried. You don't need to replay it. You don't need to evaluate it. You don't need to extract meaning from it. The day has already ended. It has released you. You can allow it to fade without ceremony. The body understands this moment more deeply than the mind ever could. It recognizes the slowing, the heaviness, the quiet settling. Breathing continues without guidance. The rise and fall of the chest no longer needs to be followed. You don't need to stay aware of it. Awareness can drift. If attention moves away from the words, that's not distraction. That's the natural direction of rest. The sound of the voice doesn't need to remain clear. It can blur. It can soften. It can disappear entirely. Nothing important will be missed. There is no instruction hidden here. No message waiting to be understood. Just a steady presence that no longer asks for engagement. You don't need to hold on to anything. Holding is effort. Letting go does not require action. It happens when action stops. If sleep comes, let it come quietly. You don't need to witness it. You don't need to mark the moment when awareness fades. That moment doesn't need to be known. Sleep does not ask for permission. It arrives when the system feels safe enough to release control, and safety is already present. Not because everything is resolved, but because nothing is being demanded. You are not required to be alert. You are not required to be calm. You are not required to be anything at all. You can simply stop responding. If thoughts arise again briefly, they don't change anything. They are weaker now, less convincing, less urgent. They no longer pull attention with force. They appear and then move on without needing closure. This is not something you need to observe. Observation belongs to wakefulness. The night does not require monitoring. It continues on its own. You don't need to help it. The mind can rest without fully shutting down. It can float without direction. There is no edge you need to reach, no final thought to complete. Completion is not the goal. Release is. And release is already happening in its own quiet way. You may notice that the sense of self feels distant now, not gone, just less defined. The boundaries that usually hold everything together have softened. You don't need to hold them. They will return later when they are needed. For now, there is no role to maintain, no identity to support. You are not required to be someone in this moment. Just being here is enough. Even that will fade. And that's okay. You don't need to stay present. Presence has already done its work. Now it can dissolve. If there is a feeling of drifting, allow it. If there is a moment of blankness, allow it. Nothing needs to be named. Nothing needs to be remembered. The night does not ask for memory. It asks for surrender without effort. The system knows how to do this without guidance. It has done it many times before. You don't need to trust the process consciously. Trust is not required. Only the absence of resistance. And resistance has already softened. You don't need to check if you are falling asleep. Checking brings the mind back. Let the checking fade too. There is no benefit in knowing when sleep arrives. Sleep does not need witnesses. The body will take over when it is ready. You don't need to stay with the words. They can fade completely now. They don't need to continue. The presence remains even when attention disappears. Nothing is lost. Nothing is interrupted. Just a gentle continuation into rest. The night holds what you release. You don't have to.